glad you're here. This is going to tonight. You're the last in the series for the grant winners. They had to go through this small business training as part of the program as grant winners, and they had to go through this to get the second half of their funding. But we've had some really great things, and we can't wait to hear what you have to say. So our speakers tonight, we have Keisha Whaley. She is the founder of Tacks Collective, a full-service creative experience agency offering paid apprenticeships to creatives entering the industry, and sister BT Foundry, the nonprofit training ground component. In conjunction with her work for the agency, Keisha is also deeply involved in the Dallas community. She served on the board of 5 nonprofits and contributed creative work for Union, Cafe Momentum, the Commit Partnership, Human Rights Initiative of North Texas, Texas Women's Foundation, Teach DFW, For Oak Cliff, and many others. Her biggest passions include social, racial, and gender equity, as well as environmental justice. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Leah as well, or get her bio out now as well. So our other speaker tonight is Leah Frazier. She's an Emmy Award-winning entrepreneur, attorney, and best-selling author. She was named as one of the top 10 inspiring Black women in marketing and communications to follow in the U.S., as well as one of DCEO magazine's most powerful leaders in North Texas. She is the CEO of Think3 Media, which provides marketing and communication services for innovative businesses and brands. Her work has been highlighted both locally and nationally as a go-to source. Leah is also a certified mediation instructor and can be found leading classes at Breathe, Meditation, and Wellness in Highland Park. So we have got a great lineup tonight. So excited. Keisha, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. So I will be sharing my screen so that I'll take a look at presentation. This helps me sort of stay on track. I am a person that talks way too much, but I want you to know that I am also a very informal person. If you have questions, thoughts, anything, feel free to unmute and interrupt me. You're not really interrupting. I'd like this to be a conversation. So my world is in branding and marketing. And when I first entered this, I entered as a graphic designer, and quite frankly, how I was taught to think about branding was that it was a logo, and now we're done. And what I've learned with my career and in having my business, Branding 101 is what should truly be called, no, you can't have just a logo. So we're going to talk about what makes up a brand, who we're talking to, how to reach them, all of that. So let me dive in. My introduction was actually beautiful. Thank you so much for that. I don't really have much else to say for this, except for to say something that I think is really important is that I want to always be an open book and an open door to people. So if there is anything that I can do to assist anyone, add an extra brain to the thought, eyes on something, or even share my expertise in my creative work, I'm always happy to do it. That's really what I feel like I'm here to do. So that is me. What is branding? So we use the term branding a lot. It has a lot of meanings depending on the context. So I like to think of a brand like a person. We have the body. Every human has a body, the physical form. Brands are no different. And so there are those physical and visual representation of the brand. That's the body, but that's not all there is. The rest of it is the soul. So without getting too philosophical, every person has a soul, that thinking, feeling, and receptive element to their fully realized selves. That complete brands also have this. And we're going to kind of unpack a little bit about what contributes to the soul. So here are the visual components. This is the body. These are a lot, you're going to see a lot of words here. These get used a lot in my world as a branding and marketing person. They don't necessarily get used as much in the broader kind of business realm, but they can be. So you might hear someone talking about a logo, and what they might mean is a logo mark. That's the iconography. That's the Nike swoosh, the Apple. or the word mark. That's the actual words being used. Your brand may have both. Your brand may have just one. But when we say logo, we already are talking about more than one thing. You may have a sub-brand. That's to say, you have a company like Procter & Gamble has thousands of sub-brands underneath it. You might have something that you offer as a product or service or initiative, and at some point it needs to stand on its own and be a sub-brand. That's exactly what the Brass Tacks Foundry is for us. That was something that was an initiative, an offering of Brass Tacks Collective that was then able to stand on its own. You'll have your color palette, and your color palette may be broken into various colors, like your primary palette that's on everything you have, your secondary palette that might be used to designate certain things if there's some level of color coding that can happen. For people that are in Dallas, I like to reference the Richards Group parking garage when I talk about what goes beyond secondary palettes and is called a tertiary palette, which not every brand has. But if you've seen that parking garage, it's rainbow. Each parking garage level is a different color. That's for wayfinding. That's part of their tertiary palette, but it's not necessarily something that would be on all of their branded materials as a secondary or even primary palette. Your test system, your fonts being used, you might have graphic devices or patterns, you might have image styles. And then there's also apparel and swag and signage and digital versus print and all these different rules. So the body can have a lot in it. I think, part of what I have learned over the last couple of years is not to overcomplicate brands by assuming that every single brand needs all of these components in it. They don't. But you also want to make sure that you're not in a position, let's say that you're the business owner that has reached out to an individual to do your branding, and they deliver you back one logo. It's a JPEG. It's in one color format. And you can't use it on half of the things that you need to. You need to make sure that you know the components of your own brand so that you're getting exactly what you need to be useful. And then anything else that's kind of superfluous, you don't necessarily need. But these are the visuals. Let's break down the intangibles. This is what I really like. So the intangibles of the brand are in all these different categories. We're going to spend a little bit of time here. I'm starting with the personality. So the personality of a brand can be represented in many different ways. I like to look at these in the sliders. So kind of setting these parameters of where we want to go. These logos are where Brass Tacks fits. So between being more elite or more mass appeal and the term of how I want to come across. I want to be a little bit towards mass appeal. Between being serious and playful, I want to be more playful. I want to be more rebellious. I want to be more of a friend. I want to be more young and innovative. So this is the baseline for our personality. Now, there are times where I might represent the brand, depending on the context, in a different way. But this is what is consistent across. This is the personality that I want people to feel when they engage with my company. And we've got our values. Every person has values. Every brand has values. You can be single. I'm a very wordy person, so I've got single words and I've got paragraphs to prove it, behind that. So some brands have very limited values, and then some have novels on them. The values are really important to align if you're thinking at all about adding on people, partners, even when you're thinking about adding different revenue streams to your business. We assume as solo entrepreneurs, or when we're starting the company ourselves, we assume that our personal values are going to come through no matter what. I'll never forget who I am, and so as I navigate my business, that will always stay. And that's not necessarily true. We all grow, and we have the ability to adapt and change how we see the world, and that can be really good. But if we don't put down on paper at some point what our values are, it's hard to make sure that we are still on track with where we were intending to go. It's hard to bring other people into our companies if we start hiring on and make sure that they align, because that's the very first thing that determines your company culture, is the alignment with the values. So the values and identifying that as part of the brand and not an operational piece or something like that is really paramount to getting to branding that's fully representative of who you are as a company. Then we have things like mission, vision, positioning. You don't necessarily need all of these things. And I would say until about 5-6 years ago, most for-profit businesses did not have a mission statement. They might have a vision. Mission statements were sort of co-opted from the nonprofit world because the nonprofits had to say why they exist. But I found it very useful. So any of the clients that we work with, regardless of where they fall between for-profit and nonprofit, we talk about creating a mission statement. Your mission statement should answer why you exist. What's your purpose? Your vision statement should talk about where you're headed and what it looks like when you're successful. Some mission statements say, we want to, run ourselves out of a job. If we're successful, then we don't have to be around anymore. Some vision statements, look very different, but that's the difference between the mission and the vision. Mission is why you exist. What's your purpose? Your vision is what does the future look like, where you're headed, and when you're successful. The positioning is what's different about you. So on the surface, you can say to me, well, you're an ad agency. You're a branding agency, marketing agency. Sure. But what's different about us is that we focus on creative experience. And what that means is that we offer paid apprenticeships. We do work study programs. We help people find jobs. We bring in cause-oriented businesses and help them grow. We give them access to professional quality branding and marketing, all of these things, whether or not they have the budgets that some of the big guys do. So those are the things that make us different. Those are the things that are in our position. Then we've got our voice and tone. I like to start voice and tones with the is but not list. So everybody that works with me knows is but not. These are basically parameters to write within. I want to come across this way, the is, that's on the left, but I don't want to take it so far that I come across this way. That's the not on the right. So for us, we're optimistic but not naive, supportive, not motherly. Giving yourself these types of parameters helps a lot, even for yourself, of writing. We tend to, when we start our own businesses, the business voice is our voice. We're talking, it's us. But when we get to a point where we're growing or other people are writing on our behalf, they have to have parameters to work within. Otherwise, it starts to come across feeling very disjointed, incongruent. I'm not understanding where the brand is coming from or who's talking. So these parameters are really helpful to give someone a baseline to move with. And you'll see that that's kind of the theme for a lot of what we do is that baseline. Then we give examples of how we use that and how we talk and we write. So I have rules like we have a 2 exclamation point max in communications. So if you put thank you at the end with an exclamation point, then you can only use one other in your email or your post. We've got things, I haven't actually added it here, but I just realized the other day that I've never communicated out loud that no one's allowed to say y'all in a brass tacks communication, because I don't want anyone to decide that brass tacks only exists within the state of Texas. I want to be beyond that. So no y'alls. I also don't say y'all unless I'm being funny, but everybody else does. So we create the voice and tone to give ourselves some rules there. Just like a person, there's a voice. So now I want to talk about the last kind of intangible component of all of this. And it's basically thinking about relationships. So we have our body, we have our soul, or who we are, and now we're going to start navigating the world and talking to other people, making relationships, making connections. So actually, let me go back here. There's no such thing as a target audience. And what I mean by that is there's no such thing as one target audience. If you are only focused on one audience, then you are leaving out far too much. Even if you say, my target audience is women 18 to 65, well, tell me how many things in common women 18 to 65 have. That's the first thing. Is the age range too big? Is the racial demographic too big? Is the economic, education, any other demographic too big for them to have common needs? Unless you are a water company and that's your service, then what do you have that everyone needs? So I encourage people to think beyond and to start looking at things like, okay, I have something that can be used by a teenager all the way up through your life. Great. Okay. What's the next designation? Well, they might be someone who is more likely to have a family. That's a break point. Okay. So every time you identify a break point, that's a new opportunity for an audience. So I have, for Brass Tacks, I have about 5 different audiences that I'm talking to at any given time. I've written 20 audience personas for a client, Dallas Mavericks. They have a lot because we're talking about all these different types of people that might engage with them at any time. So I really still steer people away from the idea that there's one target audience and that's it. This is me telling you everything ahead of the slide where I explained it, but this is basically what I just said. All right, so there are audience types. This is kind of high level. Type 1 is direct. This is who we're speaking to directly: buyers, clients, partners, any of those people that our messaging, when we're presenting, when we're selling, whatever we're doing, this is who we are talking to. So you'll have 2 or more than likely. And then, like I said, some people have 20. That's okay. The other one that gets forgotten a lot are the indirect audiences. That's who's listening, whose negative opinions could keep you from being successful. So you're going to think about the direct audiences likely before they make a decision to buy, to work with you, to hire you, whatever that is. They're going to consult someone. The person that they consult is your indirect audience. When that person's on the fence about the decision, they're going to go to an indirect audience. So you will have 1 or more of those. You want to make sure that you keep them in mind so that they have the type of information that is puts you in the most positive light and incentivizes them to work with you. So I think about this like, our clientele is mostly in the cause world. So for corporate, for instance, sorry, I'm about to teach later tonight, so I'm actually on campus. Hi, Hannah. So what we're thinking about is I have our cause-oriented clients. So corporate social responsibility, for instance. So I've got somebody that's a CSR manager at Pepsi. They might chat with someone that is at another company that's not in corporate social responsibility. They're on the financial side, and they might be chatting about, choosing to work with us and hire us, but they want to know if that feels risky. Well, I need that person that's in the financial department at Pizza Hut to feel like they have enough good information about me. We have a solid reputation. We've worked with other brands. I've never met this person. I've never made messaging to appeal to this person. But if I keep in mind that they are listening, then I know whatever I put out needs to show that we are a stable company, that we have we can back up anything we promise with true proof of concept. That's how we treat it. When I put something out in the world, I'm thinking about who all is listening, not necessarily just who I'm talking to. So these are some examples of what we put together when we think about these. We call these audience personas. You might also hear these referenced as avatars or customer profile, things like that. When we create these, we want to create a person that feels like a living, breathing person. So we give them a name and a photo, but that's actually the last step. We start with demographic research to know who we're talking to. In this case, this was for a persona created for AIDS United, which is a nonprofit based out of Washington, DC. And we had to go through and look at, if we were going to create a persona for someone who is HIV positive, we had to go through and say, okay, where are they likely to be from? What are they likely to be demographically? And doing all of that research then led us to the next step, which is how are they feeling? What are they attracted to? What are they repelled by? What are their fears? What are their hopes and goals? And then after all of that, we start to write a bio of who this person is. And what this means is that once I presented this to AIDS United, anything that we did that was intended to go to our Mackenzie audience, then I could center it and say, okay, you see here, this is how this messaging goes to Mackenzie. This is how this email is meant for Mackenzie. These resources are for Mackenzie. It's a whole lot easier to have a name that we're working with and we're kind of thinking of than to say target demographic group A, which you'll remember are our HIV positive group that's living in the southern sector. We don't need to do all of that. We can instead just have this person that we feel like we've met and we can connect with. These are some other examples. Maya Edmond, we created this one actually for our own use of someone that might be hiring and potentially hire our apprentices. For this one, it addresses what concerns her, what motivates her. So there are lots of different ways to put these together to make sense for you. And then here's an example of someone that would be a donor for a nonprofit, potential donor, and thinking about what she would respond to. So anytime that you're going to create these, if you want to create these, feel free to use it however, to get to the information that you need to send her in. But some of the things that I've found are most successful are when you create that person. You start with the demographics, but at the end of it, you've got a person. All right, so as we're sort of wrapping up here, there are ways to use effective storytelling. That's what a lot of this is going to come down to. Once you have the body and the soul of your brand, you've got that voice together, you know who you're talking to, then we're ready to tell a story. So as far as best practices goes, consistency is huge. Anyone viewing or engaging with your brand, especially when you're in the startup space or any sort of small business space, are going to scrutinize what you have. Because as much as I love human beings, we are all looking for a reason not to spend money. So any way that we give them that fuel to say, well, my website actually doesn't match this one pager I have. My presentation deck isn't ready yet for you. Any sort of inconsistencies you have gives them that permission to step away. So we want to make sure that everything is consistent and cohesive across all aspects. The intention after that is huge. Think about Simon Sinek saying, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. That's still true. And so the intention of what you are doing also should go through how you are doing it. So the choices about the media or the methods that you use should be made in the intersection of what your audiences want from you and what your business goals are. So you may or may not need social media. If you do need social media, what channels should you be using? If you need e-commerce, would it be good to have your own or use another platform? There's a lot of stuff that kind of comes in that intentional space. And that's what separates us from, or not separates us, but that's what transitions us from branding into marketing, is the intention. What are we up to? And then the last piece that I'll sort of insist on is quality. You want to have something that looks expensive. It doesn't have to be expensive, but we assert a lot of our perception on legitimacy just with how it looks. So if you think about those brands that you see on the shelves, we shop with our eyes first. We're looking at great packaging. We're picking it up and we want to see about it. So the quality of what you put out really is huge. And Donalise, I'm happy to share this because there are some links here. So MailChimp has a really great brand assets, kind of going through how they create their brand assets, but they also have a guide on how to create your own, and that's their reference. This last part that I want to kind of leave us with is that when we are creating audience personas and we're thinking about how to do effective storytelling, that we think about different considerations. So for example, if you're pitching to investors, short attention span, you need to know a little bit on each one to know what they're interested in. Are they a numbers person? Are they more altruistic? Do they want to see the money? Do they want to see the data and research that you have behind it? Everything should be sort of tailored for them. Your supporters, these could be the people that fund your business, the first people to buy, anybody that's the first in for you. You've got to make sure that you're still fostering those relationships and not taking them for granted. So it can still be, my mom's one of my biggest supporters, but it's still kind of keep in mind, I still have to talk to her on a regular basis. When you're thinking about your supporters, you need 4 to 7 touch points before you make an ask. Before you ask someone to part ways with their dollars, 4 to 7 touch points is what you need. With customers are becoming less impulsive, more investigative when it comes to buying. So trust is slowly built, easily lost. Testimonials, reviews, ambassadorship goes a long way. And that's it. I'm going to take a breath and see if anybody has any thoughts or questions.
Do we have any questions you can pop on and ask?
I do have a question, Miss Keisha.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So I appreciate you saying, hey, if you are really trying to niche down, you are missing out. That's just been my greatest struggle, probably everyone here. So in the efforts to not niche down, but to be tailored, do you suggest, because I have a couple of businesses that I want to launch, and I'm thinking either I need to tailor it to one particular audience, or I need to create 3 different businesses, because honestly, they can be that.
Sure.
What have you seen most effective of, hey, just do 3 different things, or figure out a way to put everything under one umbrella and not feel overwhelmed at the same time?
Well, overwhelm is a different story. So
Right.
when it comes to this, if you've got three kind of different things that you've got going on, and you're fighting between, do I completely segment, or do I put this under one umbrella? The first thing that I would encourage you to do is take a look at what unites those 3 things. There will be some sort of common thread. If it is just you, if it's, what I can do is I can paint, and I can fix houses, and I can do your taxes, and those 3 things may not all come together, then that's a completely separate thing. But if there's anything to just be a common thread in them, then you can probably find a way to host it under one roof. And then what it becomes is a messaging task. How do I make sure that the people who are going to be most interested in each of these 3 aspects are found? So for me, for example, I have to be talking to potential clients of the agency. I also have to be talking to potential partners of our nonprofit, those people that can contribute to the educational aspect of what we're doing. And then I have to talk to people that I want to come through the program. Each of them, the common thread is that they all need the branding and marketing creative that we do. Some of them need it in their portfolios, some of them need it for their businesses, and some of them need it because it's an aspect of their business that they don't offer, but they want to still kind of bring it under one roof. Like, for instance, some of our partners are web development shops. So we partner with them and we do the creative and they do the web development. Everybody's now happy. But what I don't do is put out one LinkedIn post trying to talk to all 3 of them at the same time. So that's what you can do, is first assess if they have any common threads. And if so, am I just going to tailor my messaging? Or if not, do I really need it to be 3 separate businesses?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Keisha.
Yeah, thanks for that question.
Very helpful. Thank you.
So we had one in the chat. 1 second. My question is, do you help businesses better craft their mission statements?
Yes, I'm happy to. And we have some different ways of doing this. So one way is that you can hire us for this type of thing. We have 4 tiers of pricing. I do not expect everybody to have the budget of the Dallas Mavericks. I want to say that very plainly. So we actually have multiple levels of pricing to work with people. Another way is that we will be offering quarterly what we call brandathons. So taking a dedicated weekend, having businesses come in and work with a couple of our team members to build their brands and step away with what they need. And then another way is basically to consider me a mentor to you. And as you're kind of putting something together, that I can put eyes on it, give you some feedback. Hi, Karen. 2 of my apprentices actually go to school here where I'm teaching tonight, so they qualify. I can kind of come through and help give some input on where you're headed. So it depends on what you'd like to do and what kind of investment you can make in terms of time and budget, and we'll kind of work from there.
So Keisha, can you, when you stop sharing your screen, you're able to do something can you put your contact information in the chat? We've got a couple people that are asking.
Yeah, Let me do that now. Let me do that now.
And Kamiko, go ahead and ask your question.
Sure. My question is back to the avatar thing. I'd actually like to see that slide again. I was trying to get a better
Yes.
grasp on sort of not being too wide, but then not niching down too much. So thank you.
Yes. All right. Let me pop back in here. Okay, so I'm gonna head backwards. You tell me when we've gotten there. Are you wanting to see one of these examples, or are you wanting to see kind of the different types?
I think it was one or two more back, maybe one more back,
This one?
perhaps. Or if you could go over again, yeah, I think it was that one, not going too wide, but then not going
Yeah.
to that sweet spot. If you can elaborate on
Yeah.
that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. So as you are starting to identify who your business or your products are for, you're going to start to think through the breakpoints. So what those breakpoints are things where the demographic changes. So there are gender breakpoints, there are racial breakpoints, age, and depending on what you do, income or education could be breakpoints, where someone is from or currently lives, so geography. So each time you identify something that could separate one group's needs or desires from another, that's the breakpoint. What I like to do is I start really big and I write out as many different things that I can think of. These are all the different types of people, all the different age ranges, all the different genders, all the different racial backgrounds, all of those things. And then I start to say, okay, now where do their needs come in? And then I'll start drawing circles. If there's a group that only this group has this particular need, they get one little circle around them. But more often we see that several different ones will have a similar need that can be fulfilled by our product or service. So you'll start to put together those necessary points where you can say, okay, this is an audience, and I'm going to start working with this. And typically, you can't really get to fewer than 2 audiences for direct. And then as you're thinking about, maybe there's an audience that you've put up there, but they're not necessarily going to buy or engage with you directly. Now they're an indirect audience, and you'll likely have at least 2 indirect audiences. Those are the ones that are listening. Those are the ones that would be consulted in a decision-making point. They're the ones that, you know, their opinions could help or hinder my success for this. So I wish I actually, it's probably a good idea at some point for me to make kind of an infographic. When I typically do this, when I have more time, we actually go through a demonstration of building the audience persona together, and kind of what that looks like. And I am happy if there's, you know, time at a future point to do that for you all, kind of walk you through that process. I really like it. But that's kind of where it starts. Start identifying what all of those different types of groups are, and then start, you know, linking them together by shared needs.
Great. So we also had another question. We wanted to know, how do you go about choosing a color palette for your branding?
Ooh, I love that question. Let's go back. Okay. So I teach an entire class about color theory, and that's really where it starts, is color theory. When you are creating a brand, I want you to think not about what colors you love, but I want you to think about how other people are going to receive those colors. So I always start with the personality questions. If your brand was a person, what would their personality traits be? If they walk into a room, what are other people picking up? So for me, you see in my primary palette, I've got navy, gold, and white. These are traditional colors. I came in starting my company at 28 years old, feeling like I need people to trust me. I need people to believe in what I'm doing, because quite frankly, if they look at me on paper, I'm too young. I'm a woman. I'm coming from creative, not from business. I have too many strikes against me to be able to be believed. So in thinking through what I was going to do in my colors, I went with the navy because that is an institutional color. Blue brings about trust. It speaks to trust and stability. the deeper the blue, the more institutionalized, the more traditional. And so I wanted people to know what I'm doing here is creating the foundations of really great creative work and the foundations for people. I wanted the gold to speak to quality. That's what gold means to people. You put gold on something and they get, it's rich, it's wealthy, it's quality, you know, all of those things. And then with the white, it's transparency. I will tell you that in my 7 years of business, I have not met another CEO that's willing to sit down with their company and show them the financials every single month, but I do that. I have everyone on my team, regardless if you are a day one apprentice or you have been with me for all 7 years, that you can ask me any question and I will show you what the answer is. I want transparency to be a key part. So that's my primary palette. I'm getting across those things that are most important to me to communicate, or at least that they were, 7 years ago when I started this. My secondary palette is where I wanted people to know that we have personality, that we are young and vibrant. This is where I felt like I could take more risks. So our secondary palette has some of those colors. So I played with the blues about that trustworthiness, but I gave it some more energy and brought it to a place of just sort of playfulness. I put in the greens because, quite frankly, I want us to make money, but really greens are about rebuilding. It's about intentional growth. Those are those greens. But then you get to that active kind of energetic green of the energy of new people, young people coming in and their potential and their possibility. Pink is the color of comfort. Pink is actually the only color that we have that gives us almost a sense. We know pink feels soft. Just to see the color pink, we think about that. So I wanted to add in some pink because I really didn't want this to come across as overly forcible. This is my friendliness coming in. I'd like to give you, I'm a hugger, that kind of thing. And then orange is also a color of friendliness. So I have that throughout the palette. So as you're building, all of that is a long way to say you start with the personality. How do you want your brand to be perceived and received? Then you can take a look, and there's lots of resources available to you online. If you Google color theory, you can get the kind of the basics of what the colors represent, because it's not as important that it be what you associate with that color, but what are other people going to associate. And then the last step is, what can you live with? If you've got to put on your own brand, colors, what can you live with? You'll see that there are certain colors that could be in there, but are not because they don't look good on me. Or I don't want a whole brand of certain colors. So that's the short answer of how to build a palette. That's another workshop I'm happy to teach if you'd like to.
That's very, very interesting. So we had one last question. Somebody, I think our Facebook audience, wanted to know if you could further explain touch points.
Yeah, touch points are, so I use touch points instead of communication because I feel like it can mean more. So when we say touch points to our clients, we mean an email, a phone call, a lunch, or a coffee meeting. It might mean seeing someone at an event and having a conversation. So anytime that you are connecting with another person, that's the touch point. So when you think about, I said, 4 to 7 touch points before you make an ask for support. If someone walked up to you that you've never met before and said, "Hi, great to meet you. I'm starting a business. Would you like to be an investor?" Then you'd say, "Absolutely not. Thank you so much for asking." Or, "I have this great thing. Do you want to buy it?" And then it's, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm on the phone. I got to go. If it's someone that you have met that has had conversations with you, you met at this event, and then you had a phone call, and then you got for coffee, and you did all of that, between 4 and 7 of those interactions, now we're at a point of familiarity, a point of trust. This is a person that actually exists in the real world. They've probably talked a little bit more about their product or business. Now I'm ready to spend that money. Now I'm ready to donate, to invest, to buy. So that's what the touch point is, and that's how you can use that. And I would consider that across all aspects, no matter who the supporter is. It could be anybody, but that's kind of an ongoing rule.
All right. That's Very, very interesting. So do we have any last questions that are not specific to your brand, just a general question for tonight? I will put, I've got.
I have one little question if I could. My question is, if I have what I'm trying to do is support and have parenting classes, and I bought a curriculum, but I want that to be more or less like a resource, but not, since I don't own it, I bought the curriculum. Would that be considered a service or more or less a resource? But my goal is to try to make a larger audience of parenting. I'm doing pretty good with just a curriculum that I bought from someone else, but I also want to do more mentoring and helping. I'm an educator as well, so I can support people with disabilities. I can be an advocate. So would that go under resources or services?
So you are the service, and that curriculum you bought is the resource. And I would think about this as a holistic offering. So rather than trying to break it apart and think about how to pitch it, you pull it together. This is my offering. We offer, full scope support services, and part of it is this curriculum that we deliver. I do a very similar thing, and that's kind of how I think about it. Is that you can, in getting me, you get our curriculum, but you also, I'm here to talk you through it and to help and support, to mentor, to train, all of that. So yeah, I would keep them together, but I would, if you're kind of sorting it in your own mind, you're the service and the curriculum's the resource.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Keisha. We appreciate
Welcome.
it very much. And this was very different than anything we've ever had before. I love it. It's awesome.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. Thank you all for having me.
Thanks.
So now we're going to part 2.
Yes, part
Okay.
2.
All right, Keisha, thank you. It was such great information. All right, Leah, we gave your bio earlier, so I'm happy to just welcome Leah Frazier now.
Thank you, Tracy. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, we decided to kind of tag team this operation today because a lot of people often have questions about marketing, and sometimes they have questions about PR, but it's really like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. In my case, you can't have one without the other, but if you like your peanut butter with no jelly, that's fine. There's no shame. But my company, Think 3 Media, and Tacks Collective, often we come together to create one mother agency for a lot of projects. So I love hearing Keisha speak. I know that she does exactly what she says to you guys that she does. I use the word y'all, so she's just gonna have to get over it. But we partnered together recently. We just did the Big D Reads project. It took a year to put into fruition. She handled, so everything that you saw in that project, if you aren't well aware of it, I would just Google it. It was in partnership with D Magazine and so many other entities, Amazon sponsored, where we re-released the accommodation book that was a banned book in the city of Dallas for all these years. And so here comes Keisha coming in and branding and making this bomb logo through her company, and they did all the marketing materials, and then here I come on the PR side, and we're doing all of the press and the media and the magazines, and it was just one beautiful partnership. So I think that's a great example of when branding, marketing, communications, and PR come into play, how you really can create mass exposure for your brand. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to talk a little bit about PR. So I'm just going to share this screen, and I'm going to click play. It's timing out just a little bit. There it goes. All right, cool. So I want to just talk tonight just about PR basics just for small businesses. I often do this presentation just to give small businesses, startups, entrepreneurs, just some basic tips. So if you need a quick hit, or you're launching something in your business and you want to get press and media attention. What does that look like? I also like to destigmatize PR because people like to only think that is press and media outreach. And it's so much more of a bigger pie than that. And so tonight we're going to talk a little bit about PR yourself. This was a brand that happened by accident. I did a presentation. It went well, and I started doing it at UTD and all over the place. And then during the pandemic, I created a course for small businesses, and that went extremely well. And that merged into a podcast that I was recording at the Slate. And the podcast immediately shot up into the top 5%, and it's still in the top 5% in the world, the number 8 PR podcast in the world. And so a lot of the guests that I had, from news anchors to Emmy award-winning investigative journalists to other publicists and PR firms, we give tips and tricks like I'm going to give you tonight. And a lot of the listeners have used it, and they've gone on television. And I've even had some anchors come back and say, hey, so-and-so booked the segment, and they did it because they used your tips. And so I'll be giving you guys some of those tips tonight. So just a basic definition of what PR is, because sometimes I'll have somebody call, we'll do intake, and what they need is more so marketing than they need PR. And so I like to separate the two. Again, this peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So PR is a strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between organizations and their publics, okay? And I would really underline that component of relationships. PR is all about building relationships, whether that's with your press and media partners, whether that's with your community, whether that's with influencers, or even whether that's with your target audience, like Keisha was talking about, the different avatars. How are you publicly building relationships with all these different individuals that then helps to propel you and your brand to be communicated in the way that you want to be communicated? But at its core, when you have a solid PR plan, it's all about influencing. So it's this theory of, I'm going to utilize these different methods or these different platforms in order to shape your perception of how I want you to view my business. And so that could be, if you only want, I saw somebody in the comments that was talking about having an eco-friendly or sustainable towel luxury brand, right? Very, very niche. But what if at one point in your business, you kind of don't want to be on TV just promoting towels? You want to be the leading authority in all things sustainability. With a solid PR plan, you can craft and you can shape the public's persona in order to recognize you as that source. If you're constantly and consistently putting yourself out there, whether that's press and media, the blogs, using influencers, speaking on panels, having your own events where you are that thought leader or that expert, you can slowly shift the public's perception of how you want them to perceive your brand. How is that different from marketing? PR helps with your sales. I'll put that out there. It does help. But PR is not going to be that marketing process that says, when the customer comes to me, this is how I'm going to lead them down the path to exchange money or to buy my services or to do a contract with me. PR is not that. PR is just almost like that lead generator. I'm going to bring the audience to the brand, whether that's they see you on social media, they see you doing, TV, or they hear you on the radio. But your marketing process and a lot of the things that Keisha was saying is going to be the thing that actually drives them to sales, not PR. So they're very separate. You really can't have one without the other. And I highly always suggest folks to really consider having a marketing plan before you decide that you're going to go full on and heavy into PR. So just to prove up my point with a lot of folks that are like, oh, PR is just get me on TV. No. It's more than that. I'm a member of Public Relations Society of America. And on our site, especially for the Dallas chapter, we list over 21 ways that you can engage in public relations for your business outside of media and press. So I want to destigmatize that everything you do, every action you take, every communication that you make, even if it's on social media, is a form or a segment of PR. Even down to how you internally communicate with your employees, with your interns, how they feel about you as a founder and your business, that is PR. Because what happens when you take them off? they're going to go tell somebody that tells somebody that tells somebody. And now you're in crisis management mode, which it is the second one here on this slide, which is a part of PR. So I definitely want to give you this list so you can start thinking about that there's different avenues. However, tonight we're really just going to focus on, as a small business, how you can utilize press and media, because that is the more popular discussion. But I just want you to know that these are all the different avenues in which you engage in public relations for your brand. So as I just talked about, there's like 21 different ways to engage in PR. And so as a small business, you need to get super scrappy, because some folks can't, when you're a startup, you have little to no marketing budget. Well, luckily, a lot of things that I'm going to talk to you tonight are absolutely free. But you have to get really down to the nitty gritty, the grassroots. You got to get scrappy, and you have to be willing to put yourself out there to make relationships, maintain relationships in order to get the press and media attention or to shape that public persona that you want. So one of my examples of just kind of using different methods and combining them all together in a strategy is my first client and still a current client, Don Morphy. It's a custom men's suit clothier company here in Dallas. I can't even remember when Daniel Mofor is the founder, when he arrived on the scene. I just know I saw him at an event. He didn't dress like any other man here in Dallas. It was literally like that movie moment. I saw him across the room and the sea parted, the sea of people parted, and I see this chocolate man in this cobalt blue trench coat with a white tee and like these blue jeans and these boots. And I'm like, who is that? Not from like I want to get what you standpoint, but the man he dressed really good. And so I walk up to him like, hey, how's it going? And he tells me about Don Morphy. And I was like, I don't even care about that. I need to work with you, because the city of Dallas they don't know that you exist. And like, this just sets me on fire. And so after months and months and months of talking, he finally was like, okay, Leah, bring it on. What can we do to let people know that Don Morphy has arrived? So we took all those elements I just showed you in the prior screen, from press and media. We did, everything from Good Morning Texas. I believe we did CW, NBC, all those guys. And I told Daniel, like, as a founder, like, if you took my breath away, just like I just saw you just a second ago, imagine when I put you on a stage and you're wearing your designs. You don't even have to speak. And he didn't want to speak because he's from Cameroon and he feels like his accent is too heavy, and me just being the person I am, nobody cares about that. Like, well, I'll train you. You need to be on the stage because we got to sell these clothes. So we had public speaking. We did our own events within his showroom, and we still do. We have one next week, actually. We engaged with influencers and partnerships. And then we even looked at an awards aspect through Fashion Group International, which he actually got denied for the Dallas Award. It ticked me off. And I said, screw Dallas. They don't know what they're missing. YouAreTheBomb.com. Let's just skip over Dallas's head and go straight to New York, which is the top chapter in Fashion Group International. I submitted him for the award and he actually won. So he flew me all the way out to New York. Tommy Hilfiger was the one that awarded him the award alongside Pierre Moss, which is a really major Black-owned brand. And the rest was history. All of the big wigs were in the building. We made sure we did a major press run as soon as he got that award. And what happened when we got back to Dallas? They decide, we want to give you a Rising Star Award in fashion. Now imagine that. So then he won in Dallas 2 months later, but you see how we had to combine all sorts of different things, from submitting him for awards, speaking on panels, engaging with our influencers, coming up with really creative events, and press and media in order to really amplify his brand. And so today he works with, he just designed a coat for Diddy. He and his sons have gone viral on TikTok. I think over 50 million views right now. So we use that as a press angle recently. And it's just been really cool to see him grow. This other brand to the right was a former client, Bilquis Wine. Same thing. Leah, we're only here in Texas in a couple of spec stores. We're trying to expand. And it was the same thing. I was like, I'm gonna need several bottles of your brand. I went super grassroots, like literally walking downtown, delivering bottles to our food writers to D Magazine and DCO and all those guys, and saying, just try this wine. But we focused more on the story because the blend of this wine, the honey and the hops and everything they had in this wine is, now this is what my client told me, so I was trying to fact check, but apparently this was a celebratory wine that they used when like King Solomon was born. Like it's very, very ceremonial and sacred to the people in Ethiopia. So we use that story and her being like the vendor here in Texas to really push it forward. And all the press releases saying, you can only get this here, otherwise you're gonna have to fly your tail over to Ethiopia and get it. But she's the only person that has it, and it went well. So a lot of press and media, which is very hard to get when you're promoting alcohol. We did a lot of events and tastings. We did one for TEDx Plano, and the line was just ridiculous. A lot of influencer events. Of course, they love to drink, so we're here to give it to you. Organizational partnerships, and it resulted in an 80% increase in her sales that year. And then she expanded across 40 states. So combining all of these different methods and being patient enough and consistent enough can result in mass exposure for your brand. So I'm going to kind of fly through this. So those were just examples. When you think in terms of a PR strategy, and I know this is going to be a lot for a lot of you guys, so I will give the slides. I just want to manage expectations because like even a couple of weeks ago, I had someone reach out for something that they wanted in less than 30 days. And that's great. But a lot of our media partners, TV stations, TV segments are booked out already. And so you really have to take the time to think about, where do I want to position my brand? And so your PR strategies are going to be very well thought out and planned. Like, who do I want to engage with? And to Keisha's point, where she was talking about knowing your avatars, there's a part of that customer avatar marketing strategy where you actually research, like, what podcasts are they listening to? What magazines are they reading? I had some clients that really want to be in modern luxury, but your brand is not where or what modern luxury readers want to see. Maybe they're over on Culture Map, or maybe they're in Paper City. And so really doing a deep dive and researching, where are they spending the majority of their time, and then crafting a plan to hit them in their face with your brand every single time is going to be the most important thing. PR strategies are very strategic. They're very intentional. They require patience. I would like bold that, highlight it, put it on the fridge because a lot of people want things really fast. And with PR, it's all about relationship building and continuously putting that story out until people get it. It requires you to measure it. Maybe you did, a segment, or maybe you have an article and you didn't hear anything back, which that's okay. There's ways to get around that, but you need to measure what is actually being effective for your brand. Again, this is one I would bold, is consistency. So sometimes you may send a pitch out, and we'll talk about pitching here in just a little bit, and you don't hear anything back. The fortune is definitely in the follow-up, especially with our press partners and media partners who receive hundreds and hundreds of emails a day. So you're constantly have to push yours up to the top of the box, and or to their email box, and you just have to be comfortable with being consistent. And a well thought out plan, or especially as a small business, is going to require your time. So as you're budgeting your day and you're saying, I'm going to work an hour on branding. I know a lot of small businesses put a lot of time into social media. I would go a step further and say maybe an hour out of your day, or whatever you have planned, 30 minutes should go towards sourcing, sources for PR, or maybe researching those press and media outlets that are within your city. It takes a lot of time. And what we're seeing lately with the amount of articles that have to be published online per day per journalist, there's a lot of turnover. So you'll think you have your friend, your news anchor, your go-to writer, and then they're out of that publication the very next week. So it requires your time to consistently research, and then execute. I did some. Okay, there we go. I want to focus on PR as, again, it's not your entire marketing process, and this is an online marketing process. I do realize there are brick and mortars, but if we think about our e-commerce and our online marketing process, which was huge during the pandemic, PR is there and it exists to just attract your leads. So if you can get rid of the sales process and leave that to marketing, PR is just there to get the eyes of the customer on you. Now, what I tell a lot of small businesses is you need to have your stuff together on the background before you do this process, because what you don't want to do is do a radio interview, get in a magazine or do TV, and then people hop over and want to follow you on social media and you have no social media or you haven't posted for months. Or they go to your website to buy the product and the link doesn't work. So there's a lot of things, even down to making sure you have a flow that takes that customer on that journey to buy from you, making sure that is solid. So what I mean by that is, let's say, I'm just going to go with whoever I can see on my screen. It's kind of, I'm just going to, I think it says Cynthia. So let's just say Cynthia decides she's going to do a segment on Good Morning Texas over her brand. Everybody's excited. While she's doing the interview, they're already on her website. Well, what you don't want to do is have hundreds of viewers go to your website really excited about, I believe you were talking about parenting and a curriculum you had. Oh, we want to see the curriculum. And maybe they get sidetracked and they go on their phone, but you had absolutely nothing there to capture their information. What good is it to put all this effort into PR and you don't have a funnel process, or you don't have a way to capture the customer information so that, as you see on the second and third bullet point on the screen here, you can nurture them to then convert them into your customer. Whether that's, I'm on Good Morning Texas, Cynthia's there, she does a bomb interview. People on her website, we want to connect. There's no email pop-up, they leave. You're done. Okay? Let's say she does it, email pops up, they put in their email address, you're golden. Because now what can you do? You send them a newsletter. You can send them a welcome. You could try to set up a discovery call, and you nurture and nurture and nurture until you can make them a customer, do some sort of money exchange. So PR is more about just get me on TV. It's, I need to make sure that I have my entire sales process set up so that when I'm putting myself out there on TV, on radio, in the magazines, I am ready to take this person from just an onlooking consumer and make them my customer. And that's why it's important. All right. I don't know why it's going backwards. Okay, there we go. Not gonna talk about that. Okay, so the prep process, what do you need in order to be prepared? Because I see this all the time. Okay, there's several things that you're going to want to have prepared. You can gather this information in a Dropbox file, or you can have it in a Google Drive. And depending on where you're sending it, they'll tell you which ones they prefer to have it in. So I would just have it in both, just to start off. You're going to want a general press release about whatever it is that you're pitching. Let's say that you've launched a new soap, a new lotion, or recently I've been working a lot on holiday gift guides, or like last minute holiday gift finds. So I would draft that up in a nice release in Word format. Do not PDF it. And you're going to put that into a Dropbox file as your press kit, okay? The press release, why this is very important, and I hate saying this, is there's lazy journalism out there, okay? They are way too busy. Some of these online outlets have to kick out 6 articles a day. I was working with a writer on Saturday. He said he had 12. And so they just want to copy and paste. If you put it in PDF, I know Culture Map does this, they'll go to the next person and run their article. If they have to go back and forth with you, hey, can you convert this to Word? They've already moved on to the next article. So upload it for them in Word format, knowing that they're probably just gonna copy and paste. And is it plagiarism? Sure, but do you get an article out of it? Great. So make sure it's very well written, upload it in Word. You're also gonna want a professional bio, and you're gonna want a long and short bio for yourself. I don't care how long the long one is. That's why it's called long. But your short one, 150 words or less would be great. And uploading those, once again, in Word is ideal for your press kit, just because, again, we're in the era of copy and paste. You're gonna want your company bio. Why is that important? Because 9 times out of 10, if you're going on the radio or you're going on TV, Sometimes they want to take the about part of your brand and that'll be their lead in for the segment. So you want to be able to make sure that's in Word and then copy and paste. Again, having that professionally written. If you're not a writer, please hire a copywriter. Maybe it's Upwork or Fiverr, or finding a freelancer here in Dallas, or an intern that is a journalism major, because these are super important. And if somebody receives your press release or your bio and the grammar is jacked up, it doesn't read well, then it's like, they associate your professionalism with that, even though we know that's kind of like super judgy, but it happens. So hire a professional if you're not a writer. After you have your bios in there, you're going to want to have your headshots, and you're going to want to have different variations of your headshots. So that could be anything from you're on a basic white background, gray background, different outfits. And when I say lifestyle, maybe you're outside, you're laughing. Like I used to model for JCPenney, so it's that really fake, I'm having so much fun. We're talking to each other. Oh my God. And it's just really weird, but it looks great. You need some of those. Why? Because you're going to have some outlets that want to feature you, the founder. So I'm just going to bother you, Cynthia, because you're the only person I see on my screen. So we're highlighting Cynthia. We're doing an article on her amazing brand. You're going to have some editors that are like, I see this headshot in 20 other different places. I need more. And if you're like, let me go have my husband take my picture on the white wall in my room, we're in trouble. So have your headshots in different variations, knowing that you do have some outlets that don't want to reuse the ones that everybody else has used. You want high resolution photos of your products. If you're in the events business or you do events, you want to make sure there's a professional photographer there and you want that uploaded. And if you have a brick and mortar space, you're going to want a photographer to take images of the interior and the exterior of the space. And all of that needs to be uploaded and organized in your Dropbox or your Google Drive press kit. This one is important. I put a lot of stars by it. You're going to want videos of you and your product. There's this thing in TV world we call B-roll, where it's literally a video of something. They don't put sound behind it because maybe you're being interviewed and they put your voice over, seeing Cynthia's face, but Cynthia's talking during the interview. This became really important during the pandemic when it was a uptick of Zoom interviews because of the pandemic. We couldn't go into the station. And so a lot of the news stations relied on our videos of our product, our videos of our events, and our videos of our space to use during the newscast. And today, even though a lot of the stations have opened up, if you have videos that they can use, you have kind of upped your chances for them to put you on the news, because now they have less people to work with. They don't have the photojournalists that can go out there and capture that for you anymore. They've downsized. So if you can have videos and you put in your pitch, like, I have a video of my space, I have B-roll, I want you to run my event on the 10 o'clock news, I will have B-roll for you as soon as the event concludes. You have really upped your chance for getting coverage because they weren't able to do it. And this is something that they want. So definitely videos, and then logos. So this is a basic press kit. I'm super extra. I always have a lot of other stuff in there, but this is your basic for a founder or a small business. So kind of just going super quick through this. For small businesses, there's going to be 3 stages where now you've got your preparation, you're prepped, you're ready to go, you have your press kit, you know about your brand, and now you have 3 stages by which you want to see coverage. So my top 3 is when you launch a new product or service. However, if you reach out and you want coverage, it really needs to be new, innovative, and unique to the market. So we often joke that a lot of people are like, oh, I'm the first ever to do whatever. And then you go on Google and it's like, no, you're not. This was invented 20 years ago, right? However, if there's some new, funky, unique twist to a product that you're putting out, the news and press and media partners love that. And that's almost kind of like your way in for coverage. Trending topics is probably the number one. I always tell a lot of business owners to really think long and hard about. This thought leadership concept is huge. Oftentimes, you're not going to get on the news just by your brand in and of itself, because they don't want the segment or the radio segment or the interview to seem like you're just advertising your business. They want you to bring value to their audience. And so the way you would do that is you're coming in as the founder, but I am the expert or the subject matter expert in my field. And then at the end of the segment, when I give you my top 3 tips, or I'm weighing in on some data, so I'm going to just use Cynthia again because that's all I see. I'm sorry, sis. But it's like, let's say there's some curriculum or some educational statistic that just released, and you want to come in and weigh in on it as to what does this mean for, parents, or what does this mean for your audience. They'll bring you in on that. And then at the end, they will publicize your business. But they're not just going to bring you in just to say, hey, here's this hot new business that I think you guys should patronize. That's not how it works. So for a lot of you guys that don't want to put yourself at the forefront, I would ask you to consider doing so. Really stepping out in front of your brand, knowing that there is a need for subject matter experts. I always send over a list. I always get a request from WFAA for my list of subject matter experts, because they need people all the time to speak on things that they don't know. And so please consider that. And then the last thing where you would probably want to seek coverage is if you have an event or any major happening. So maybe you have a panel and you're bringing in the top CEO. Maybe you're doing a launch party for your brand and you want to invite the media out, or maybe you have a celebrity coming in for a gala. All of those things, the media and the press love. If you're an author doing a book release, that's a little bit tricky. That would go back into that thought leadership topic where you're going in and maybe you're talking about tips from your book, and then they publicize your book on the back end. But as you can see, it's kind of like this game where you're constantly negotiating and analyzing. But these are my top 3 stages that they often look for folks. So when you're thinking about how does this apply to me, Leah, like what type of angles can I do for my business? The number one that I saw the most requests for, especially during the pandemic, was they just want a feel-good story. How are you impacting the community? Are you impacting kids? Are you helping families? Are you saving lives? Are you kissing kittens? Like, what are you doing? They want the feel-good story. And there's a lot, if you go out and do your research on a lot of these outlets, they have created special segments just for this. So Good Morning Texas, at the top of the hour, there's always one good thing. That's for nonprofits or somebody just doing good in the community. We had our Dallas Doing Good publication that blew up over the pandemic because people just wanted to really read about founders or community leaders really just doing something awesome. NBC has Tell Me Something Good. They all have these feel-good stories where they're looking for different businesses and founders and nonprofits to highlight, because they realize we're reporting on deaths and the pandemic and the flu, and you step outside and you sneeze and you get sick, and this person got murdered. They really want those feel-good stories. So that's my number one. Thought leadership, again, thinking about, even if you're in fashion or you're in beauty or interior design, how am I the leader in what I'm doing? What are the trends that I'm seeing in my industry that I can speak to, that at the end they will publicize my business? Newsworthy subject matters. So setting up a Google alert so that you know what's trending in your area. Oh, they said 80% of fashion goers wear green during the holidays. Okay, cool. If I saw that article, I would pitch Don Morphy and be like, I need you to go find some green so we can prove that this 80% wears green and you're the subject matter expert. So thought leadership. And then your community events. So let's say you do an event, it's for the community. 9 times out of 10, it does need to be free. The radio stations are obligated to do PSAs. And so they're always looking for a way to interview community leaders that are doing events for free that they can highlight on the radio. So my thing is pitching. My pitching tips is to really just study the media outlets. So that may mean you're just going to sit and watch the news all day. I know it's kind of boring. Or you're going to sit and listen to the radio. What type of stories do they like to cover? even picking up the latest D magazine and charting it from front to finish. Like, what type of restaurant coverage do they like? When they highlight a local leader, what does there seem to be a pattern in how they're laying out this magazine? And so then when you consider reaching out to the editor or whoever wrote the last article, you can pitch them exactly how they've been writing it. You don't have to figure it out. So you have to study these outlets. I suggest whatever you have to pitch out for your brand, doing it at least 30 plus days out. I'm not saying you can't get anything less than 30 days, but if you want to be in print, I would even go further and say 60 plus 90 days, because you got to give them time to get it to print. But for TV, you definitely want to reach out 30 or more days out to secure segments, because they book really fast. Connecting and following the media personalities online. I know that seems a little weird, but they love it. You following them on Twitter, you following them on Instagram, seeing the things they like to cover. That's how Kara Sewell and I became really close friends, as I just started following her and I realized she really liked supporting women entrepreneurs. And once I really got to know her, and she liked dogs. And so once I really got to know her, I started to connect with her on the things that she liked and started pitching her in that way. And she's done some amazing stories on a lot of the Think Through Media clients. So connect with them, follow them, see what they like. And then next, slide in their DMs. There used to be this really scary process where folks thought, I need to know the producer, I need to know the booking person, I need to know this and that. And really, it doesn't work like that anymore. You have a lot of news anchors that want to hear your story just by you sliding in their DMs saying, hey, I saw you on NBC and you did this story on such and such nonprofit. Let me tell you about what I have going on. Sorry, somebody's calling me. Also, a lot of them like to be approached via LinkedIn. For some national outlets like Oprah's magazine, we had some luck with Black Enterprise and some of those guys. I found the writer, approached them on LinkedIn and said, hey, you just did this parenting story on so-and-so. I have a client that's similar but unique in this way. Would you be interested? Can you send me your email or contact information so I can get you the information? And I've only had one journalist out of all these years that never gave me the contact information. They've all given me their email address and they've read the pitch, and I've had some run the story the same day. Lastly, just setting Google alerts for trending news so that you're aware of when something's popping in your industry and when you need to reach out to the news stations or radio or whoever the contact would be. And then personalizing the pitch. Again, you're going to do that after you connect and follow them and you know what they like, but saying, let's just say it's Kara again. Hey, Kara, I love your Up With Her segment. Are you looking for any other additional stories? Let me tell you about what I'm doing with blah, 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 blah. And then personalizing it. I am not a fan of the mass pitch of putting everybody on one email and sending the press release to 50 or 60 people at one time. I actually take the press release and individually send it out to every single person so that I can personalize the pitch. And that's just me, and that's just a pet peeve. I'm gonna just briefly hit on this and get to questions. But before I do what's trending in PR, a lot of questions I get is, where do you find the contact info? The news assignment desk for a lot of the TV stations, they monitor the email box that comes through the website. That is part of their job. They do it every single day. And so if you want to get on Good Morning Texas, you can follow the anchors, you can pitch the anchors. Like, I know Hannah responds to DMs. She's like one of the most vibrant personalities they have. She's great with that. So again, sliding in those DMs. But if you're not sure, like, who's my contact at NBC or CBS or whatever, you can just go to the contact form on their website and tell them what you want to cover. If you have an event and you want them to show up on site, again, not pitching them the day before or the day of, but putting your event information and just requesting that you want somebody to come out and cover whatever it is that you have going on. And if they can assign it, they will. I'll go a step further and say, I'm very scrappy, so I will send it through the website, but I will follow it up to a call to the news desk just to make sure that they got it and that it's in the news folder. So that's just a tip. But all of these contact infos is not hard to find. Go through the website. If you're really interested on booking a segment, or find the anchor, the journalist on LinkedIn and start that conversation. Most of them are very responsive. So before I get to questions, if you're just getting started, what's trending in PR? Maybe you don't want to do TV right now. You don't feel like you're ready. Radio, podcasts. Podcast tours are like the number one thing for authors, for founders, for entrepreneurs. They're spending the majority of their time booking podcasts. It's the easiest thing to get. It's kind of low-hanging fruit, and it's really great for your SEO. Most podcast hosts distribute the podcast in at least 10 plus locations. I know mine's in about 30. So if you go on there and your name's in the title or your business is in the title and that podcast host clicks publish, you're now going to be, let's just say, if I'm in 30 different places, you're going to be in 30 places on the web just from one podcast. So let's say you set a goal for 2023. I'm going to do 12 podcast interviews, one podcast a month. Whatever 12 times 30 is, 360. That is 360 different placements on the web that somebody has mentioned you or your business. That is helping with your SEO. I could get a little nerdy and talk about backlinks, but I won't. But you can have your podcast host backlink to the site, and that even helps out even more, but I'm not going to go there. Trending, video content. Before somebody brings you on for an interview, they want to see your YouTube channel. They want to see how you interview. So you got to beef up your video content. Again, the storytelling piece, more magazines, more newscasts are interested in your story, who you are as a person versus you telling them I have this great product. That only lasts for so long. Guest submissions. Again, we're in this information age where so much information is required from these journalists that they are happy. If you write it, they'll run it. So you just have to find the outlets. Most of these will be online where if you write it or you get a copywriter to write it, they will run it. And if you want a list, I'm more than happy to give that to you for who will do that here locally. And then again, relationships. Once you book these segments or once you get with these journalists, cultivate the relationship, take them out for coffee. I know the folks over at WFAA, because that's one of Think Through Media's partners. I call them, I'll take them to coffee, I'll take them to lunch, and I'll say, hey, I have these pitches. What do you guys need? And sometimes it's not that I want anything. So keep in those relationships so that when you do need them, they're there for you. And then again, just be as scrappy as possible. So those are my very long PR tips. You will have access to these slides, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions with our time here together. If there's broader questions that, kind of apply to everybody, but I'm more than happy to answer whatever you guys have.
Yep. So we do have a couple questions, Leah. The first one, what percentage would you say PR plays pre-launch versus post-launch?
Pre-launch, I would say 40%. So post-launch is very important, but the time that you give it pre-launch is just as important as well. Like, you do need a very definitive plan. I don't have it to show you guys right now, but I was working out a PR plan for there's a new center that was just opened in Richardson, and it ended up being 10 pages long for what needed to happen before the doors even open. And so you have to be very strategic, especially if it depends on your timing. If you want all of your articles to hit at the same time, then you really need to start working about 90 or so days out, so that if you're working on print, it comes out in print, to give yourself time to book segments if you want to be featured on a certain week or a certain month. So it's very important. Your pre-launch strategy is just as important as your post.
Okay, so then we had somebody wants to be featured in Voyage Dallas next year. Do you have any tips for engaging with digital magazines?
Voyage Dallas is really easy. So just have somebody go on their website, click submit a story, put your name and your social media info in there, and one of their editors will probably send you questions within 2 weeks. So that one's really, that is, a really easy one for everyone here to get. I've had some clients that didn't want it because everybody's on it, but I tell them, get over yourself. It's amazing SEO because when they Google you, it's the first thing that comes up. And with Voyage Dallas, you get to take ownership in how your story is crafted because you're writing the answers to the interview questions. So if you know your SEO keywords, or you know how you want to be found, or know how you want people to perceive you, you're writing the answers to the questions. So to me, that's the best type of interview to have. What was the second part about Voyage?
No, that was, do you have any tips for engaging with digital magazines?
Digital magazines, I would just come up, again, you need to research the outlet because some of them are very different, and see what they like to cover. You're going to have way more digital outlets that will accept a post that's written by you or a copywriter, and they will publish it, versus your print magazines. So I would approach, I would look on the website under contact us and see, do they accept guest posts? Because if they do, that's an automatic one for you. I know for a fact that DFW Child Magazine accepts guest posts from moms, educators, or whoever. And that's easy. That's low hanging fruit. So that would be my suggestion on that. If they do not, just reaching out to the editor online and asking them, hey, I have this going on. What do you think about, my story, or it's applicable to you in this way? And digital is way easier than some of the other outlets to get.
Okay, great. So then we had another question. So we had an individual that moved to Texas, Dallas Voyage reached out to them. She ignored them or she didn't respond because she wasn't sure about their credibility. So then she wanted to know, what are your thoughts? Is all PR good?
No. No, I mean, so yeah, for sure, definitely go on the site and make sure that if they're doing an interview on you, that the images look good, that the spacing and the paragraphs aren't crazy, because a lot of people want to be verified. A lot of people want to be in Forbes or do like some Wikipedia thing where they actually do go back and look, where have you been featured before? And so you do want to make sure that it's a nice site, that it's reputable, that it's professional. I will say that from what I see with Voyage, like I haven't seen anything that's raised any red flags, unless whatever you submitted, just the copyright wasn't, or the copywritten piece wasn't great. But definitely you'll be able to tell what's terrible and and what to pass on it, and when to, go full-fledged.
Okay, great. So what's a good way to get your name out in a local context as a thought leader? Are the popular social media channels good for that, or are there better channels for thought leadership?
I would say that content is definitely king for thought leadership. So before you even decide, like, I want to do a guest piece for, let's see, Dallas Innovates does guest pieces. It's called Voices. So let's say you want to submit yourself for that. I would kind of take a step back and just make sure that the content that you're putting out on social media, especially LinkedIn, I can't say LinkedIn enough, LinkedIn matches how you're going to be establishing yourself as a brand. It has to go hand in hand, because a lot of these outlets are going to go back and say, well, have you spoken on this before? Or what is your area of expertise? And you need the content to support it.
Okay, great. Would you suggest paying for memberships to be in local magazines?
Memberships? I don't know about memberships, but if you're thinking about having a paid media strategy, it really just depends. A lot of startups and small businesses don't have the budget for that. So a lot of this you can get as earned media. However, if you do have a budget and you want to be on some of these best of lists, where some of them are pay to play, or like Modern Luxury, that's definitely a pay to play magazine, and you want to be one of the top founders or whatever, or the featured nonprofit, sometimes it does make sense to pay for that, because they'll do a whole photo shoot for you. You work with their editor so that the messaging is exactly how you want it to be. And they are entitled to give you data and analytics to support your ROI. So they have to give that to you after they're done with the campaign, versus if it's earned media, They don't have to tell you how many people watched the segment. They don't have to tell you how many people listened in. We gave it to you for free now, bye-bye, you know? So if you can, I would say as a small business, maybe 1 or 2 outlets that you can pay for is not a bad thing.
Okay, great. So then we had, you mentioned including your name in the podcast title. Can you expand on that?
Sure. So some podcast hosts will allow you to kind of work with them for SEO. And so sometimes maybe you don't want your name included in the title, but it needs to be in the caption. So I'm always thinking about search engine optimization. What are people searching for? How can I get the business to rise to the top? How can I get my name to rise to the top? And so if you have a sloppy title, and sometimes they don't want to put it in the title because they have their way of doing it, just a simple request asking them to make sure that the business is referenced in the caption, or your name as such and such is listed in the caption, is not a stretch, because you're going to be the one to be very strategic and intentional about your SEO and your PR. Now, if you ask and they don't do it, oh well, but if you've done 12 podcasts and 10 of them have done it, I would say that's a win, because a lot of people are not thinking like that. They're just happy, oh great, I got on the podcast. But you really do need to go back and say, I would like my business listed as this. I need my name and my title, or I would like to be referred to as this if it's listed in the caption. And here is the link, if you're going to link anything, that I want you to send people to on my website. So that's very important as well. I did PR for a bank, and we were really trying to beef up the founder. And so anytime the bank was mentioned, we didn't go to the homepage. We did the About Us page to his page so that we can drive his face up the Google pages. So you have that right to ask for that.
That's very good information. Very, very good. Dr. Small, you have your hand up.
Yes, ma'am, I do. Hey, Leah, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Pretty awesome, Trillion here. I've worked with Leah and she knows what she's doing. She's pretty awesome. So it's good to see you. Quick question. I'm considering starting a blog. Again, I'm an author of several books, but don't really want to write another one, just really trying to launch another business. And so considering starting a blog, would you suggest starting my own blog initially, or just being a guest blogger on other people's websites who already have that great SEO already established?
I would say both.
Yeah, okay.
So here's the misnomer when folks say, I'm going to start a blog, or let's say it's the blog that's housed on your personal website or the company's website. Automatically they think, oh my God, I got to write 10 blogs a month. No,
Right.
That's not it. One blog a month on your website that's 1,000 words, where you're strategically using, again, SEO keywords. So maybe one day somebody will come in and just do a straight SEO session. Is way more valuable than you writing 10 blogs on your site that Google doesn't care about. So if you can dedicate one per month at 1,000 words, it could be an interview with someone. It could be your top 3 to 5 tips on X, Y, and Z. That is way more valuable and more constructive of your time. So you could do that once a month. And then you can guest blog on somebody else's site. Now, again, this is that piece where it's like, you got to ask for what you want. Most of the time, if you're going to guest write on somebody's site, they give you a byline. Ask them to hyperlink your byline, or at least reference back to your site. And that way you're cross-marketing. Because what if people are like, dang, I really like what Dr. Small wrote over here on this site. I want to read more. Then boom, they click over and they're automatically back on your site. You have to ask for it, because a lot of them won't do it.
It's really good. Thank you so much, Leah.
You're welcome.
All right, last question, Leah. Thank you so much for your time. So do you have any PR strategies for seasonal products?
Seasonal. Okay, so depending on what it is, so let's just talk about the holidays as they are right now. Typically for some of my clients that are like, maybe there's more fall related or holiday related, I mean, we really do just go hard in the paint during that season. But outside of that season, we focus more on that thought leadership piece, or Are there panels that you can speak at? To Dr. Small's point, are there blogs that you could be writing that then references back to your business that can still create continuous PR for you that's not just dedicated to that season? And then I'm going to just keep talking about it. Podcasts. Podcasts are not seasonal. You can go on a women's entrepreneurial podcast and talk about your story. You can go on a mompreneur podcast and talk about who you are and what you do and link back to that seasonal product, but that will get you ongoing coverage until you get into that heavy season where the news, the radio, or whoever else is very interested in featuring your product or your service.
Yeah, don't wait till it's time to sell it to start talking about it, right?
Yeah, I'm curious to know what it is, but let's just say if we're talking about like it's holiday products, which are a big thing right now, you probably should have started talking to the outlets, late October, early November, especially if we're talking, or even early October, if you're talking about, I want to be featured in gift guides. So that 90-day out thing is a very real thing.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Leah, for your time. This was a great presentation. We just appreciate you taking the time and your willingness to share with us. And I'll turn it back over to Tracy.
Oh, Leah, that was awesome. Thank you. We had some great comments. I hope you're reading them, that they thought this was one of the best ever. They love all the information you and Keisha gave tonight. It was a pleasure having everybody here. Grant winners, this is the last one in this series, but you're always welcome to attend any of our other events. Donna Lisa, what have we got coming up?
So we have our last event of 2022, and that is our December Women Rise. We're going to be talking about doing a SWOT analysis for your business, your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. So that's next Tuesday, virtual and in person. Registration is open.
Great. That's a great way to end the years and National Business Plan Month.
Yes. Great plug.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending tonight. Leah, great to see you again, too.
Thank you, Leah.
Good night, everyone.